You're now live, thank you, Chair.
Diolch yn fawr. Bore da pawb, good morning all and welcome to this final audit and risk meeting of 2025. And we've got a strong complement of members and our key officer team. We're also joined by Ellen Parry of TIA, our internal audit partners, and you're all most welcome. Apologies for absence I've received from our colleague, Mr. Craig Stevenson, and we wish Craig all the very best and our sincere condolences following a recent bereavement. In terms of correspondence, I received an email, a very important email from Audit Wales, which will be coming to substantively under agenda item 8. Also, I'm just going to hand over to the Chief Executive to advise us of other items of correspondence.
Diolch Gareth. Bore da pawb. Yeah, we had one other item of correspondence, which was the response from Audit Wales on the audit fees consultation for 2026-27. As National Parks Wales, the 3 parks did put in a response to the consultation, which is reflected in the Auditor General's letter, which we've received. Our points were that relative to our declining funding or relatively declining funding, the fees continue to rise. Compared to our colleagues in England and Scotland, the proportion that we pay in audit fees for our statutory audit is much higher. And we're going to go back to the Auditor General with some further data on that. As a relative proportion of our turnover, so if you compare the median turnover figures for one of the principal authorities with the National Park Authority, we have a much higher proportion of our turnover, over 1%, allocated to pay for our Audit Wales fees. And we still wrestle with being a relatively straightforward financial proposition in terms of being a special purpose local authority versus the complexity of a full local authority, but we remain subject to the full regime. That's more a matter for accounting standards, but nonetheless, it means that we have a very heavy audit relative to our complexity. So some of this has been addressed in the response. However, the fees are still rising by a percentage which has been reflected in that letter. So we will still have to pay a fairly substantial audit fee.
Yeah, grateful
Thank you.
to you for that clarification and response, Catherine. I mean, it is good to see that we have a substantive response from the Auditor General in to our what we had to say in the consultation, and it is, I suppose, heartening to see a minor reduction of fee, but it's still very hefty and disproportionate to the wider structure of our organisation and our financial capacity, really. So 5.3 it is, and that's where we stand. But thanks for speaking to that point. Are there any declarations of interest that I've not been made aware of? Okay, there being none, we move on, and there are no requests for from members of the general public to speak on this occasion. Okay, we therefore move to the minutes of our last meeting on the 6th of October, which we've had the opportunity to study in detail, which I've got in front of me. I see no points of accuracy or issues to raise. Are there any that colleagues would like to raise at this point? No? In which, yes, Elan, over to you. Floor is yours.
Yeah, just want to check on page 14 of the pack. So in the internal audit item, there's annual report. There's a heading, annual report 24-25. There's a sentence in there. Internal audit noted that they did not complete the risk and governance framework audit within the year. I wasn't sure what that means. So
just remind us, please, of where in the in the
It's-
pack, that is?
Page 14,
14, I'm rapidly
Under the
getting
heading-
there. Yeah,
end of the first paragraph under annual report 24-25.
oh yeah, I see. Yeah, yeah.
Might just be a case of taking it out, unless Richard can.
Yeah,
Shed some
Richard, could
light
I
on
ask
it.
you to clarify or whether that's yeah, Richard's indicated. Over to you, Richard, just to clarity
Chair.
on that. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. I think that's a legacy from the previous year, so when it did roll over, so I think that needs to be noted as to be amended, so that they were
Okay.
all the audits were completed in the last financial year. So yeah, I say I
Thank
thought
you,
it
Ellen, for
23-24
raising
financial
that.
year was a crossover.
And Richard for the clarification. Okay, so subject to
Yes.
that amendment, do I have a proposer for the adoption of these minutes? Professor John Hunt and Councillor Jeremy Davis, proposed and seconded, and then by old-fashioned show of hands. Yes, okay. Those minutes are agreed. Good. Action log, agenda item 6. Catherine, this looks to be again in full form and is satisfactory order and is for noting.
Yes, everything's complete on there. Thank you.
Yep, excellent. Okay, good. Agenda item 7, internal audit reports. We've got a raft of reports here from Elan. Can I ask you to briefly set them in context, Ellen?
No problem. So the first of our reports in the pack here is the assurance review of premises and holdings, so the assets. This was a piece of work requested by management. So it shows sort of it's an example of good working relationship between managers and the internal audit. So where it's been identified where advice is required, and we've provided that. So no concerns regarding a reasonable assurance, as we know. It's a good level of assurance, but it's been driven by the 4 priority 2 recommendations that we've presented, which have been agreed and accepted by management. Looking at the management comments, are there any questions or comments on this report before we move on?
I'm not sure whether it was here or in a subsequent report that Councillor Simon Howarth had indicated he had a question. So
Yes.
am I coming to you prematurely?
No, you're not. No, that's
Okay,
fine.
over to you
I just
then.
wanted to ask Ellen, a reference to the level 2s there on 2 of them reports about the issues that we have with the assets, and we were supposed to have that all signed off by the end of financial year, at the end of this year. Is that going to happen there? Reference to the comments being made, just for all the report up.
Yes, I see the first one has a implementation date of last day of this month, hasn't it?
Yeah.
I should probably pass that forward to Richard, I think,
Okay.
just to comment on how reasonable that is.
Yeah. Okay, over to you, Richard.
Thank you, Chair. So just for point of clarification, so the assets, according to our policy and set of guidance, are revalued on a 5-yearly basis. What this is referring to is property inspections, and for a number of reasons, including COVID, the inspections haven't taken place. So they should have been done by 2024. So they are out of kilter. So I think the plan is to appoint Cook and Arkwright or commission them rather to recommence this survey work. It won't be completed by 2020, the end of this year, but certainly hope to make good progress early start of next year.
Excellent. Thank you, Richard, for that. One thing I noted in reviewing the report on page 29, item 7, page 29, there's a reference there that I think is worth just updating. That relates to the David Paris Police's intentions with regard to the HQ building. I think the most recent position is that that's been bumped back to 2027 because the as we know, the lease on HQ has expired, and it had been extended to June 26. Whether or not there's been a formal extension or whether that's emerging news, I don't know. But we do know that the police will only be in a position to vacate the current building when they've made appropriate arrangements for custody at the new facility. And as yet, that planning consent hasn't been applied for, and I'm sure they wouldn't want to get into a situation of enforcement with us, given our good relations. So Catherine has indicated.
Yeah, just to confirm, I believe Gareth, Director Planning and Places, confirmed that the latest date is January 2027, but it does keep moving. So it was accurate at the time of the report. It's now January 2027. Thank you.
Absolutely, as you've said, it's a movable feast, really. And I think in terms of the wider issues around our assets, it's only appropriate to acknowledge our indebtedness to Cook and Arkwright for the way in which they're approaching their work, because it is an area that was a real concern to us in the past period, and it's just one other example of how we're pulling things into better order than they were previously, and that's a valued relationship. Are there any other items that? Yes, Councillor Simon Howarth.
Can I just ask Richard then on number 5 there? Are our asset management group aware that they've been asked to try and meet more regular within the remit of their goals, only on the basis of the comments are that they did start off and now it seems to have tailed off again? That's the management group. Have they been made aware that actually they're being requested to probably do a lot more in moving this forward?
Yeah,
thank you.
Thanks for your question, Simon. So when we were going through the audit, Gareth Jones and Wayne Phillips were a party to the audit process, and they're integral to the this group of individuals concerning the property assessment. So yeah, we are fully aware. I mean, I think the issue is we have had periodic meetings, but they're not being held on a regular basis, and we were able to provide evidence of minutes and the like. But I think there is a bit of ambiguity about responsibilities for that area, so I think that needs to be thrashed out really as to who's managing Cook and Arkwright in particular.
Do we have any member involvement on that, Chair, as reference to perhaps members may be able to push it on a bit quicker? I'm just realising there perhaps it may be if members get 1 or 2 members are involved in that. Do we have members, Richard, on there? No members actually are sitting on that committee. Whether it's appropriate or not, I'm not. I mean, it is an internal committee, so but I'm obviously open for your instruction on that. Well, thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Councillor Simon, for that. Catherine.
Yeah, just to the point on member involvement, I think that there is a recommendation about having a more regular reporting to members on this, which obviously we've agreed to and will do. And then referencing back to the discussion about accommodation more widely, it's the sort of thing that perhaps could come into the accommodation working group discussions. There's a sort of periodic group of members and officers that have been working together on that. So I would suggest it would be picked up in the round of kind of property and accommodation matters. Thank you.
Thanks, Catherine. I just wanted to ask Richard for clarification as to the extent to which Cook and Arkwright and their work feeds into the issue of making sure that our insurance is fully up to date in terms of the value of the various properties, replacement value, and also the validity of insurance in terms of the necessary structural, electrical and other checks, whether that's something that falls in the remit of the work that they're doing for us.
So as I said, we are statutorily required to get our asset valued every 5 years according to best practice. So those revaluations are undertaken. I think the last revaluation exercise was in 23-24. So what happens thereafter is that we have an indexation process where the valuation is upgraded by the construction industry applicable index. And we had a meeting with our mortgage brokers last week on the very subject. So that is taking place. With regard to health and safety aspects, we do engage with other kind of advisors, consultants, to help us with and review the health and safety aspects of our buildings. So that is done separate to the valuation exercises.
Okay, thanks, Richard. That's really helpful. I mean, I'm conscious, obviously, that HQ, our largest premises, actually falls to David Powys Police as in its landlord function, but we've got the whole listing of other assets within our estate that need that attention that you've just referenced. Are there any further member questions or clarification sought on any of the reports that Ellen has spoken to? If not, then this matter is for noting. Could I find a proposer and a seconder for noting this report? Professor John, and on this occasion, Councillor Simon was there first as seconder, and indication all in favour. Okay, thank you very much for that. Moving now to agenda item 8. I referred to this briefly earlier. We've got the text of, this is one of the most welcome pieces of correspondence that we've had from Audit Wales. Ellen, I'm just going to come back to you because I've just seen your indication.
I'm just wondering if you want me to quickly run through my other reports I've got on the agenda. I have risk management.
Apologies, absolutely. I was so keen to get to that that I'd failed to do that. Absolutely. Please, Ellen, moving forward into the second of the 3 reports. Absolutely.
Okay, so the review of the risk management framework, so the overall process, again, reasonable assurance, and there's quite a few sort of housekeeping level low priority recommendations that have been made here just to support the organisation in sort of firming up, tightening up on processes. All bar 2, I believe, have been accepted and agreed. We will, I think, one is partially accepted. A couple of them might be partially accepted. What we'll do is we'll review the authority's stance on those as we would with all the recommendations when we come to do the follow-up review, and see if it's still sort of applicable and at the time. Any questions or comments on this risk management report?
Catherine, you've indicated. Back to you.
Yeah, diolch Cadeirydd, and diolch Ellen for the really thorough internal audit from your team, which we found really helpful. I think the main point to get across here is that the risk and performance work in the authority does not have a designated lead officer. So we've worked hard to get the risk management framework in, but very much led from the executive team, and we talk about the designated officer in here, so we're working at pace to try and get a designated officer in. Our colleagues in the other national park authorities in Wales have a dedicated officer, and I think we've now got to the point where we can't really continue without having someone who leads on performance risk and compliance matters for the authority. So quite a few of the actions rely on having that officer in place, and we're hoping to progress that recruitment in the coming weeks. I.e. to have the advert open over the Christmas period so that we can have someone in post as soon as possible in the new year. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine, for that clarification. And that really has been that the absence of that staff member with that dedicated responsibility has been a significant obstacle to progressing at the pace that we'd wish to. So best case, we might have somebody by beginning of the second quarter. something like that. Okay,
Yeah, with new financial year, I think, at the
Yeah.
latest, hopefully.
realistically. Okay. So in the meantime, that we'll continue relying on the two of you on screen to be leading on this work for us. Conscious that that's a significant burden, but it's one, hopefully, if we manage to progress this, that we can that we can make some real progress on to address particularly the areas where improvements been flagged. Okay,
If I may,
thanks.
it's very much myself, Richard, but with great support from Gemma and my office as well.
Sure, sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, excellent. Absolutely. It's a whole team effort. Alan, back to you, or you've opened for, you've invited questions. I'm just looking for further member input on this. I think that the appointment is obviously going to be critical and something that we will be setting a lot of store by in the first portion of next year. In which case, I think we should be looking to note this. I will propose that we note the second of the three reports. I find a seconder, Councillor Jeremy, and all in favour. Good. And the third and final one on the summary of internal controls, November 25. Ellen.
Diolch. The key page I want to draw your attention to on this progress report is page 4 of the report, page 52 in the pack I have in front of me here. And I'm delighted to say that we are looking very likely to complete the plan, the internal audit plan, within the financial year. Historically, we've had a couple of reviews moving over to completion, to be completed in the following financial year, but the data protection review is scheduled to be undertaken this week now, and I know the auditor's busy making preparations for that. And then just the annual follow-up and will be completed, hopefully giving you then your annual reports within the 12-month financial year, which is very pleasing. And just to thank management again, which I often do, but for working with us to achieve this in the time frame. It's a very healthy working relationship still.
Yeah. Thanks, Ellen, for that. I think that alignment, that better alignment, is certainly in everybody's interests, and my perception as well is that it represents and it reflects an improved level of engagement with internal audit in comparison with a previous period. Are there specific issues within this final tier report for today that members wish to flag? I think we can unite around this, and I'm certainly happy for colleagues to recommend it's that we note. I've got Richard who'd like to make an observation first. Richard.
Sorry, Chair. After you've done your vote, if that's okay.
Okay. After the vote, not before. Fine. Do I find a proposer? I've got Councillor Jeremy, and I can see Councillor Liam seconding. And at different times, we've all been in favour. Excellent. Good. Moving back to you now, Richard, for your comment.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I just want to echo the relationship that we have with TIA. So I think we've come a long way in the last year. So I'm really grateful for their support. That said, we are actually going out to tender.
Sure.
Because I think that tender is currently out on Selden Wales, with a view of coming back to for tenders to be returned by the first week of January. So just to inform you of that situation.
Absolutely, that's the fact of the matter, and that's as required that we do that periodic reevaluation and retendering process, and that's in hand. So thanks for flagging. That's important that members of this committee are alert to that. So diolch o galon, Ellen, once again for your contributions, and we're very happy for you to stay on for the remainder of this meeting. We also understand if you've got more pressing business at this busy time of year, but we are giving a guarantee that we'll be through this side of 11 o'clock because we're on a particular particular time window this morning, so we won't be going for too much longer. But that said, I'm now coming back to agenda item 8, which is the which is the welcome piece of correspondence from Audit Wales that came last month with regard to the conclusion of the statutory recommendations. I think by way of intro, I would say that this is one of the most important and welcome pieces of correspondence that we've had in recent times from Audit Wales, and from my perspective, it reflects a landmark sort of stage in our improvement journey, but it's a journey, not a destination. We know that the original set of audit recommendations were very serious, and we approached it in a serious manner. It is pleasing that we've got to a point where Audit Wales is of the view that we can be released from the sort of effective special measures under which we were operating for these last several years. But there's no cause for complacency. We've got, as is evident from the questions and comments and reflections we've heard in the last half hour, there's still plenty to do, and we've got major challenges ahead. We know that. I would just like to put on record, as chair of committee over these last several years, my thanks particularly to Mr. Hugh Rees, who has been instrumental as our special advisor in governance matters granted us by Welsh Government. He has been hugely helpful and supportive to me personally, to the officer team, and to members of this committee and the wider authority in his contributions, and that needs noting. Everybody's played a significant part, but I think that our recently confirmed head of Democratic Services, Gemma, has been particularly involved from day one in this, and it would only be right and proper to name check her by way of thanks as well. So thank you, Gemma, and thank you, Hugh, if you're listening in. I'm sure you will be, either, if not live, then you'll be following up our proceedings when you've time. So thank you very much indeed. But over to Catherine to emphasise the significance and the challenges that we still face. Catherine.
Yeah, Gareth, yes. First of all, just a reminder, this came from statutory recommendations, came from a review of a previous change programme. A report was published in February 2021, which set out some statutory recommendations relating to governance and decision making. And we have, as an authority, been working hard on the action plan to address those recommendations throughout that intervening period, with quite a changeover of membership and obviously senior leadership in the organisation as well. Follow-ups from Audit Wales resulted in us needing to seek the assistance of the Welsh ministers, and that's how we came to be working with Mr. Hugh Rees, who I'd like to thank personally as well. We have, in the last sort of year or so, been having quite a dialogue with Audit Wales colleagues about really whether there was anything else we could do to address the fundamentals of those recommendations, or if indeed we were more focused on our two major structural issues. And I'm pleased by the response from Mr. Gareth Lucy from Audit Wales, recognising that we can view those statutory recommendations as concluded, but obviously we really need to double down on the two outstanding issues: the financial sustainability of the authority, and we've had a further report from Audit Wales on that, which we're working towards, and addressing our capacity issues, and we've talked about some of those even in this meeting in terms of key areas still not covered, and processes and procedures which we're still working very hard to address. So we look forward to Audit Wales's planned review of workforce planning, which they're going to be kicking off in January, I believe. And obviously, the recommendations from that will enable us to really help and double down on what we're doing in that area. I think the important thing for the organisation is that we can view this as the end of a phase of addressing those recommendations, and very much a reset in terms of being able to then focus on the longer term future of the authority, as we seek to deliver our management plan, Dyfodol Labanau, and become an organisation which is fit to deliver that, which will involve quite a lot of change. And then the other sort of underlying issue tied up in sort of workforce capacity and our longer term financial planning is that the authority will be differently funded and performing still within our purposes and duties a somewhat different role in order to meet that delivery objectives in Dyfodol Labanau, and that really is what we're focused on. And then just final comment from me, I think the audit recommendations, the statutory recommendations, have shown how good recommendations can really help an authority to improve, and you know, it's very pleasing then to receive that letter which shows that. So yeah, I'd like to thank everybody in the team and members for all the work that's gone into addressing them. Diolch.
Diolch, Catherine. Are there any member reflections, comments, questions, or clarification sought? I think it kind of speaks for itself, and I think we both emphasise that dual message of great to have achieved this, but plenty more to do. Yeah. Okay. In which case, I think we need to move to note that, and I'd like to propose that we note that. If I find a second, yes, Professor John Hunt and others have all indicated that they're happy for that to be noted. In this case, very happy. So good. Moving on now to agenda item 9, audit recommendations, monitoring quarter 2, and Catherine, over to you.
Yes, I wasn't going to say too much to introduce this item. Thank you, Chair. Just this is our one of the improvements that the Democratic Services Manager has introduced, where we collate all of our audit recommendations into one paper so members and officers can track them easily. So we're making some good progress with some, slower progress with others, but you know, we are working hard to close those recommendations down as quickly as possible. And you'll see at the end of the document, we also have the financial sustainability audit recommendation in there, which we're working towards as well. Diolch.
Thanks, Catherine. I noted in the section dealing with ensuring member nomination support good governance, I just thought it was appropriate to reflect on the fact that there has in the recent period been a significant uptake of activity of members across the board, which I think is really helpful and positive and timely, and also that we're all currently engaged in a much refreshed and more rigorous PDR process, which I think is helpful in a two-way fashion to ensure that member input is measured and member aspiration and so on is taken on board. So I think that's just something that I noticed as I was running through these items. I think it's ongoing work, picking up the theme that we had in the last agenda item. Are there any comments or clarifications needed by members on this item before we move to note? No. In that case, if I see somebody prepared to move that we note the report, I see, yeah, Councillor Liam, seconded by Councillor John. Yes, you are Councillor. You are Community Councillor John Hunt, Professor John Hunt. From this point of view, yeah, all in favour. Absolutely good. Moving on now to agenda item 10, which is compliments, complaints, and freedom of information referrals for quarter 2. Gemma, I think we've got some positive news here, but I'm not going to steal your thunder. Over to you, Gemma.
Diolch, Cadeirydd. Again, as you mentioned, yes, positive news. I think we start with compliments. Again, good range of compliments received by officers across the authority. Remind officers to please send them through to our inquiries email or corporate services, where they can be picked up, because that's the only way we can log them and keep an eye. So encouraging officers to send those through. Complaints being dealt with timely, the correct manner. I think you can see on there that they're all dealt with. I think one is still open that had an extension to it, but all in hand there. And freedom of information requests. As members are aware, we had some progress to make in this area, and I'm delighted to say the last quarter we are back up to 100% being responded to on time. So I would like to say my thanks to the Corporate Services Officer who has dealt with this like I've not known. She's on the ball, managing. So I just want to thank the whole team for putting that together, and the directors for feeding in and getting those responses out to the FOIs.
Absolutely. Thanks, Gemma. I mean, I think this has been a nagging concern for members of this committee in previous quarters. We've seen progress in the last couple, and this is a positive place to have landed, and we're grateful to the corporate services side, as you've mentioned. We're also clearly aware of your input in this, and that is noted. Catherine.
Yes, diolch Cadeirydd. Yeah, I wanted to add my thanks to particularly the Corporate Services Officer and other staff for really putting the effort into getting this where it needs to be. We take this very seriously. Not only are they an obligation to do things like FOIs, but we're very, very conscious of the impact on public trust in terms of our ability to respond well to FOIs, EIRs, subject access requests, and of course to respond to complaints. Yeah, really grateful and hope we can maintain performance now at the level that we're now achieving. Diolch.
Thank you, Catherine. Are there any specific references that colleagues wanted to pick up in relation to any of those items? I think we just it's always one of the highlights, but particularly to look at the positive comments, but also to learn from the complaints where we can tighten up our practice or just do better. And it's pleasing to see the breadth of those different functions of Banau Brycheiniog that are reflected particularly in the compliments this time. And there's some lovely little vox pop type references there. How we've done something positive for residents and visitors during the past period. No, there are no comments, in which case I would be very happy to move that we note this report if I find a seconder and a vote. Councillor Simon, you contend as well? Yeah, fantastic. Brilliant. Thank you very much indeed for that. We now move to agenda item 11, corporate risk register. Catherine, I'd like to ask you to lead on this, please, as our chief executive.
Diolch. So yeah, hopefully, obviously the risk register is taken as read. It's risks to the end of Q2. Just to reassure members that executive board do regularly review this before it comes to committee. There's been a few sort of changes in ratings, but not substantive changes to the register. No new emerging risks. And then I just want to cross-reference the register with the recent audit that Ellen took us through earlier on our approach to risk management. I think there are a number of recommendations in there about how we can report and manage risk, both in terms of officers being able to manage the risks, but also in our reporting to members. And again, I just refer back to my remarks about getting a dedicated officer to lead on this, which I think will really help to embed that culture of risk management. There is one risk which is not on the corporate risk register, which is our cybersecurity risk, which I will brief members on in the closed session for obvious reasons. Diolch.
Thank you very much for that, Catherine. I think it's prudent that we do so later, but we do clearly need to be fully alert to those that range of risk that you've highlighted. I know this is an area that members take particularly to heart. Are there any specific comments that colleagues wish to raise in relation to this register? I think we're probably all alert to quite how challenging a climate it is out there for our communities, and therefore the work referred to in relation, for example, destination management and the work of our officer team there, particularly important at a time of real challenge to hospitality sector and to financial and other areas of real concern. So it's really important that we further raise our game in that area. Any comments? Any questions? If there are none, then again, this is one to note. Do I find a colleague prepared to propose that? Councillor Simon, Councillor Jeremy, and the rest of us, all in favour, and Professor John is also content. Excellent. Moving now to the next item, which is in fact a nil return. There is no urgent business that I've been advised of, and none will be discussed. So we now move to agenda item 13, where I seek access to information for the areas which we need to discuss in camera. And do I find a proposer and a seconder? I see Professor John Hunt and Councillor Jeremy Davis, and we have a unanimous support for moving to private session for those final items. Just before we do, I'd like to thank those members of the public who've been following our proceedings either live or follow up on the recording. And I'd like to thank Erlan for her attendance and contributions today. I think at that point we conclude the public session. So diolch yn fawr iawn, and we'll see you on the other side.